Hey everybody, Josh again here for some of your financial tips for being financially conscious. So today's topic is going to be how to invest your 401k or your 403b through your work. Not that this is going to be a recommendation on it, but it will at least give you some guidance on what to look for. There's a couple avenues usually you're taking, and you'll see it with any sort of retirement plan that you have at work. There'll be, anywhere from 12 to 15, maybe up to 25 or 30 options you have, most of them being mutual funds. And what you really want to focus on is, one, you want to, again, from a previous video, you want to maximize your matching contribution. So company matches you 5, you at least want to put in 5% if you can, just because there's a lot of benefits to it. Plus, every time you contribute every 2 weeks or every month, you're getting 100% return on your money. Because your company is matching that amount and it's automatically going into your accounts for the long term. I can tell you from personal experience, I did not work in finance when I first got out of school in 2008, 2009. There was a financial crisis and I worked in logistics. And when I started my Merrill Lynch journey, 2011, I noticed that I was like, I don't even know why I'm contributing to this. I'm not going to retire until I'm 60 or 65 or 70, whatever. And I noticed that, okay, just do it. All of a sudden, after a year, after 2 years, after 5 years, I'm like, how do I have all this money? And I'm only 25 years old, 27 years old. And it wasn't anything besides putting it on autopilot, pretty much, adding the funds, getting the match, and letting it grow. All the money that you put in there, there's tax benefits to it. You're helping yourself for the long term, adding beneficiaries to it in case something happens to you. You can give it to your kids or a family member or a friend or a charity. Not only are those great, but you're helping yourself in the long term. You're growing funds for emergencies. If something really came up where you have nothing left, that's always there for you. You're not getting taxed while it grows. So you want to contribute up to the match that your company does. If you can do more, by all means do. And number 2, you want to look at the funds that are in your account and make wise decisions. Again, this is not a recommendation for you, but just a couple ideas. Usually in 401ks, 403bs, those type of plans, you're going to be looking at different mutual funds that are in the accounts or that are in the plans themselves, because each company has its different administrator and each administrator only offers so many funds. So a couple key factors to all of this. One, a lot of companies offer what's called a life path plan. When you look at those, let's just say a life plan, it says life path 2035. So we're 2023. What will happen is it looks at how long that time frame is. It will be more aggressive in the beginning, and it will continue to progressively get more and more conservative as it gets closer to 2035 and beyond, because it's assuming you're going to retire in 2035. Now, let's say 2060 was the Life Path Fund. That's going to be ultra aggressive right now, and it'll be ultra aggressive for a while. And it'll slowly get more conservative over time, so that the funds are growing as much as you can while you're able to have the ups and downs of the market. But they are also not, they're also planning it so that when you get close to 2060, you've made as much as you possibly could. And it gets more and more conservative, usually going into bonds and money market funds, just so that it's not taking as much risk when you're going to need the funds. So those are called life path plans. Most funds will then offer U.S. mutual funds, which just think about them as you'll see a lot of what's called large cap growth and large cap value. Those are basically funds where you're looking for a lot of growth in the U.S. markets, especially larger ones. Your Dow Joneses, your S&P 500s. You'll see U.S. large cap growth, U.S. large cap value, or U.S. large cap core, which is a combination of the two. A lot of times it's not the only thing, but when you hear growth, you're thinking of places like Google or Apple or Facebook or Amazon, places that put a lot of their money into growth. When you're looking at value funds, a lot of times they're looking for values in the stock. They usually, not all the time, but usually pay dividends. And what you'll see with those are places really like your Home Depots, or think about them really as places that are looking for growth, of course, because they're stocks, but they're going to be paying dividends and looking for value. Combination, or a core of, is the combination of the two. So large U.S. value, large U.S. growth, or core. Those are your big companies, your multi-billion dollar companies. The mid and small caps usually, well, not always, but usually take more risk year to year, because those companies are not as well known. They have a lot more research and development to do. and they're usually looking for more growth because that's what smaller companies are doing more than anything. They're trying to grow as best they can. Small cap usually takes more risk than mid. Mid usually takes more than large cap. Just makes sense because the smaller companies aren't as well established. And if you look at the funds, you can actually click on each fund. It'll show you like the top 10 holdings and what everything entails in there. Most of the time, you don't know the small cap companies or the mid ones. Large cap ones are usually all the ones you've heard of, or at least most of them you've heard of. So in general, again, not a recommendation, but in general, large funds are the ones that you know you're going to get sustained growth over the long term. The mid and small cap ones are really where you're looking for exponential growth because they can have really high years. They can also have really down years. So be careful when you're looking at those. When I say be careful, I'm not saying be afraid. The market in general, if you look at the last 100 years, there's never been a 10-year period where the market has been down for that entire decade. So can't guarantee anything with investing, but you can see over a 100-year time frame, there's never been a 10-year downtime for the markets. Also, so we have the life path, we have the large U.S. There's also same thing with international. There's usually some sort of international fund in there where they'll invest across the globe. Tend to do, if you look at history, not always, year to year is always different, but if you look at the generality of the funds, U.S. tends to do better than international funds all the time. You can get more specific with them, but usually it's just an international fund and it'll show you all the different areas it invests in, different companies, different countries. You want to mix in some of those with there because then you're getting diversified across the board. Diversification is always key to long-term success. And then the final part is you want to look at those bond funds. So bond funds. Actually, I shouldn't say it's the final part because there's two things. Bond funds are more of what you would call stable funds. There's all different types of bond funds. There's long-term, there's short-term, there's intermediate term. In general, short-term bonds take the least amount of risk. There are short-term debt obligations that you get some dividends for. They don't fluctuate a ton in value. They're more stable funds. Intermediate and longer term take a little more risk. They're still not ultra risky. You won't see a bond fund ever lose like 50% of its money. But again, nothing is guaranteed with investing. But in general, bond funds pay you dividends. They fluctuate less. They help diversify your portfolio. I kind of like to think about bond and stock funds as like parachutes. So when the market's going up, your stock funds you own in your account, they're going to go up. But on the downside, when the market goes down, you're going to want to look at the bond funds as like a parachute to help lessen the losses because they tend to actually be up when the markets are down historically, as well as they'll be paying you some dividends to help lessen the losses. Key, like a rule that people would go by, and everybody take this at your own, do your own opinion on this, but usually you want to roughly take the rule of 100 where you say, hey, I'm 30 years old. How should I invest? Minus your age from 100, and that's about how much stock you should have, 70, 80% in stocks, the rest in bonds. If you're 65 years old, maybe you want to have 65% bonds, 35% stocks, or something like that. Because the older you get, not all the time, because I've had investors be ultra aggressive at 80, 85 years old. But if you're doing long-term investing, you don't want to pay attention to it all the time. Use that rule, might help you. The other final aspect of this is what are called stable value funds. Those are pretty much, they're short-term debt obligations, but they're almost like cash positions. I don't think they can say in any company that they're guaranteed, but they don't lose value. They pretty much just pay you a small amount, 1.5%, 2.5%, maybe up to 4% at most. But they're almost like cash positions where you can kind of have a holding period for your money until you decide to invest those funds. So a combination of all of those is really a good idea. Again, not a recommendation, but roughly you want to be more towards U.S. stocks than anything, especially the large cap. Add some international in there, have a little bit of bond exposure, maybe a little bit of stable value. That'll give you a diversification across the board, not taking immense amount of risk, and you'll be able to see long-term success from that plan. If you need any more tips or guidance, let me know. Put it in the comments. I'll answer as much as I can, or you can use the email to the website here. That way, at least you're able to ask me some more in-depth questions. Take care, guys. Hope it helped.